finally hearing some amount of good news on the COVID-19 front. We all track the daily health ministry briefings very closely. Two key points that were talked about today. One, of course, that we have now increased testing to where we have tested 5 lakh people. Though, of course, officials said themselves that we need to ramp this up much more. The other point, that the number of cases are growing in a linear fashion and not exponentially. We are seeing a slowing in the rate of doubling of cases and more districts in India where no new cases are being found. What does it tell us about the status check on COVID-19? Where do we stand right now? To get a perspective on this, I'm joined by Dr. A Velumani, Chairman, CEO and Managing Director of Thyrocare, and Dr. Pavan, Gurha, Head of Anaesthesiology and Critical Care at Batra Hospital. Welcome to both of you and thank you for speaking with us today. Dr. Velumani, let me begin by just getting your take on the testing aspect. From day one, the big concern in India has been, are we testing enough? Now, government officials themselves are admitting we need to test more, though we have ramped up 33 times from when we began in all earnest testing to 5 lakh tests. What are the hiccups we are facing so far?
There is some confusion among everyone. Are we testing where there are reports? Are we testing in a particular place and there are more positives and then we are doing more testing there and then we are counting that we have tested enough? Have we reached to all cities as a sampling? And many cities don't have an access for any testing because in 200-300 kilometer radius, there is no testing facility at all. So we don't know for an 1.35 billion population, what is optimum size. But if we say we have done 5 lakhs, I think that's too small for such a huge country to call that we have sampled and we have found some kind of plateauing. One thing very soothing is number of deaths aren't escalating exponentially. So testing is one thing, deaths is another thing. Testing might be underdone, testing might not have been adequately done. But I think death counts when we go, India appear to be having some kind of comfort, whether it is lockdown driven or along with lockdown, other parameters are supporting. This will be known only when we unlock it. Until that time, we will not know. If you ask me, we have scaled up. What we have done in last 20 days is scaling up. Now we need to scale up some more if we want true statistics of prevalence and the percentage death. So testing is not adequate according to me, but I agree that it will take time to scale up also.
Dr. Pavan, I just want to get your sense on testing and the numbers. One refrain that I hear very often is that the number to watch out for, the number of deaths and the number of those who are being cured. Because the number of people who die of COVID is not something that you can suppress, even though your tests might be minimal. Do you think there is a positive sign there, Dr. Pavan?
Actually, what I feel is that right now, as you said, that we have crossed that 500,000 number of tests that have been done in India. That number itself might look good, but the better indicator would be tests done per million population. So 500,000 plus tests in a population of 1.35 billion works out to about 363 tests per million population. Now, which is a better indicator? Now, if we look at the other countries, how have they done the testing? If we look at Italy and Germany and France and Spain, etc., they have done close to 25,000 tests per million population, where we have done 363 tests per million population. So that's a more indicator, a more valid indicator of the shortfall in the number of tests. USA has done about 12,000 or 13,000 tests per million population. Now, why is testing important? Because what happens is that almost 80% of patients who have COVID, especially the younger people, especially the people who do not have other medical issues, remain asymptomatic. So they get the infection, they go through the infection and recover. And if we are not testing, that number is not coming anywhere on the records. So because we are testing very little, therefore our number of cases per million is also very low, amongst the lowest in the world, considering a vast population. However, as Dr. Velumani also said, and I would agree totally, that you can't hide the deaths and the hospitalizations. You may not get the numbers of patients who are affected by it, because the milder patients, the asymptomatic and the milder disease patients, will not come to the hospitals. The asymptomatic will not come at all to any healthcare facility until unless they're randomly tested. And the patients who have mild disease sometimes may not approach anyone. If they approach their local GP or somebody on the phone, for example, they'll be advised, just stay home, self-quarantine. So those are the numbers not coming to light. But then the patients who are hospitalized, who require intensive care, who go on ventilators, and who unfortunately die, those are the numbers you cannot hide from anybody. So the fact that we have low numbers there, the number of deaths, the number of hospitalizations, the number of patients in the ICU, the number of patients on the ventilator, that's a very reassuring sign. Now, why that's happening is an entirely separate chapter, that why that's happening in India, and why are we having so few serious patients. But yes, in spite of our low testing, therefore we have low numbers, yet
Yes.
our number of deaths and serious patients is...
No, but Dr. Pavan, one of the theories about why this is happening is the BCG vaccine that, you know, all of us got when we were children. Do you think that there is any credence to this yet?
Actually, these are hypotheses. Now, hypothesis is like, I think of something that this is happening, so what could be the cause? And as a scientific person, maybe I propose something, but I'm proposing something, there is some rationale behind it, but it is not proven yet. So it's like a hypothesis, which makes sense, which makes rational sense, that yes, people who are exposed to BCG are less likely to have it. People who are exposed to malaria, they say, are less likely to have it. People who have grown up in countries like India, where our standard of hygiene is not so good, now at this point of time, it's a little advantage because we have better immunities, because we are less prone to these things. So maybe though also we have a younger population. So we are getting that demographic dividend today, that our population is much younger than the population of Lombardy in Italy, for example. So the younger people, even if they suffer from this disease, have a less serious form of disease and usually recover. Not always, but usually recover. So those are the advantages. And yes, there are various theories to explain that.
Well, they're all theories right now, but what is not a theory at all is that we need to test more. Dr. Velumani, I just want your perspective on this whole situation we've had with rapid testing kits. They've been suspended now for the last 24 or so hours because the ones we imported from China, had some problems in their functioning, etc. Do you think that we need to move faster towards easier testing, especially when we look at the post-3rd May scenario? If you want to lift the lockdown, let people out, then you're looking at a whole different need for testing.
See, unfortunately, the word test has gone in too much into everybody's mind, including the opposition parties. And they were all blaming the ruling governments that you are not spending, you are not testing. And everybody got convinced that if you want to scale up, PCR is not the test because it is too costly, time consuming. A rapid kit is likely a solution. That was a very wrong decision, to think that rapid tests are a replacement for PCR. That is where we wasted our time. Literally, crores are lost, and almost 2 weeks were lost in waiting. And then now it is told that it is useless. So the entire dream around rapid test was wrong. Now, wherever countries who have done test per million highest have highest death. Now, in our country, we have not done that many tests per million, but we have very low death. So obviously, the reasons told by Dr. Pavan is very, very important. It's a young country. It's a country where people lived in less hygiene. It's a country with BCG supported, and it's a country where chloroquine supported. All four are in part, some of them are, and all four aided by lockdown has kept the death rate low. Now, as far as testing is concerned, we need to spend money. PCR is the only test. Rapid test is not the test. So if government wants to take this 5 lakhs to 5 million, which I believe is essential, we must scale to 5 million at least. And for that, money has to get in, and how long we take it to do, that's a different story. But May 13, you have to take guess and risk and do it. You can't, depending upon the testing, you can't wait now, because very little can be done before May 13, May 3.
Yeah, I'm glad you said May 3. I heard May 13th. I think people will wonder if this is 10 days more. No, we're hoping that things move forward after 3rd of May. That's why we're tracking the numbers so closely. Just one more question, Dr. Velumani, is about the price of tests. Now, I know, private labs went to the Supreme Court when they said it should be free. Now it's going to be free only for those who come under the government schemes, etc. But 4,500 rupees is still prohibitive. It is still prohibitive for a lot of people. If there's, a suspicion in a family of 4, you're asking someone to spend 18,000 rupees out of pocket to just make sure that they're safe. Many will choose not to.
Let me tell you, the rules of the game was not defined correctly, and the goalpost keeps on changing, and the umpires are also too many. We are unable to, as a laboratory, plan and work. Honestly speaking, if you have capped it, we have to work on that cap. If you have left it without capping, we would have fought among ourselves to find what is the best rate, number one. Number two, if you do only 100,000 tests, this price is very ideal. If you do 1 million tests, this price is luxury. If you do 10 million tests, it will be great profit. So government did not decide a time frame, did not decide a size, and did not ask the private guys, come on guys, fight among yourself, get us the best rate. It would have happened. It can still happen. It has to be done.
Absolutely. It has to be done. And maybe, all of these players should push it, because no one going to volunteer to test, and this will have greater numbers and greater clarity only when testing is easier, simpler, faster, and of course cheaper. So let's go back to that focus on testing as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Velumani, and of course Dr. Pavan Gurha, for joining us today.